Inside a glass-roofed ferry hall, Argo, a police K-9, suddenly blocked a pregnant woman's path. The crowd bristled while the clock ticked. But Argo didn't attack. He guarded. A too-perfect heartbeat, a heating belly belt, and a faint UV trail pulled officers toward Pier 7. In minutes, the reason will be plain, and why that stand in the hallway saved more than one life. For nas llamaros. Morning fog still clung to the glass roof of Harbor Line Intermodal Hub, turning the light the color of old pearl. Ferries moaned out on the water. A harmonica of bus brakes sighed in reply. People moved through the long corridor in tidy lines, coats brushing, voices low. Then Argo stopped, planted both front paws, and refused to let the woman pass. She looked about 30, belly round beneath a soft knit dress, one hand pressed against a supportive belt at her back. Her other hand held a tote that had seen a long week. She blinked fast as if trying to clear grit from her lashes. "Please," she whispered, though no one had asked a question yet. "I need to catch the 9 o'clock. Sergeant Aiden Cole lifted a hand, steady and open. He had the patient face of a man who'd walked night shift for years and learned that calm was a better tool than volume. "Mom, stay right there for me." His voice carried just enough to settle the nearest bystanders. "He won't hurt you. He's working." Argo's chest rumbled. Not a bark now, just that low sound a dog makes when something isn't right, and words would only get in the way. His nose tracked the air around the woman's waist, then drifted, oddly, toward the rolling cart coming up the corridor behind her. The cart's owner, an older man with a Harbor Line badge on his cap, slowed instinctively. He was the kind you notice only when a hallway goes wrong. A quiet fixer, a mop bucket, the easy rhythm of someone who has worked every kind of mess. "Sorry, folks," he murmured, steering to the far side. Argo's eyes followed the cart until it passed, then snapped back to the woman. A small knot of commuters, drawn by the friction that always finds a crowd, edged closer. A man with a phone halfway raised hesitated. "That's a pregnant lady," a woman scolded. "Call him off." "He's not attacking," Aiden said, still gentle. "He's alerting." Nyla Park had been posted at the checkpoint since sunup. Her palm unit clipped to her belt, her hair tied back in a no-nonsense band that matched her expression. Young as she was, she had a way of paying attention that made people twice her age look lazy. She stepped to the woman's other side, keeping Argo in the corner of her eye. "Ma'am, I'm Nyla. We can take you to a quiet room for a quick check, then we'll get you moving again." The woman swallowed hard. "I'm fine. It's just my back. I need the ferry. Please, I can't miss this one." Argo eased closer, his shoulder almost brushing the woman's leg. The rumble deepened. Aiden noted the change the way a carpenter notes a warped board by touch alone. He had learned Argo's music, a high alert for explosives, a sharp staccato for narcotics. This low, protective hum for something that didn't fit a category, but could still do harm. "Quiet room?" Aiden said softly. "Mostly for the dog." He shifted his stance to open a lane that wouldn't force the woman to move around Argo. "Nyla?" "Right here." Nyla angled herself between the woman and the curious phones. "What's your name, ma'am?" "Elena," she said. "Elena Voss." "Okay, Miss Voss," Nyla said. 2 minutes in there, and we walk you to your gate." She nodded at the frosted door marked secondary screening. "You can sit if you need to." Elena nodded, but something in the motion seemed rehearsed, not lived. Nyla's eye caught it, the way the woman shifted her feet without that instinctive hand to the lumbar that most late-term mothers made. and the belt at her waist was snug, too snug for comfort. The clasp shone dull under the corridor lights, with a line of white crust in the seam that looked, to Nyla's practiced sight, like dried salt. A ferry horn sounded again, nearer now. The crowd's attention tugged toward the water, then back to the hallway drama. A man muttered, "She's going to miss it." The phone in his hand rose another inch. "Give us space," Aiden said. His tone stayed kind, the way a father speaks in church. "If she falls because we're jostling her, none of us will feel good about it." Argo moved as Elena moved, a shepherd without touching. Inside the small room, the noise of the hub fell away. Fluorescent lights hummed. A stainless counter held wipes and gloves and a shallow plastic tray. Argo sat, but his ears stayed high, his eyes fixed on Elena's midsection, and then, again, flicking to the hallway as that rolling cart rattled past on the other side of the door. Nyla lifted a portable monitor, slim and smooth, the kind that pulled signal from a belly, without fuss. "This just helps us be sure you're okay," she said. "It won't hurt." Elena's breath hitched. "I really don't have time." "I know," Neela said. 2 minutes. She dabbed a sensor across the knit. The screen showed a line that made Nyla frown before she could school her face. It was a beautiful waveform. Too beautiful. Even regular, a textbook rhythm with no tiny wobbles from laughter or nerves. No little dance most real babies do. Argo stood. No sound now. Just stood. Aiden watched the dog, and then the woman. "Ms. Voss, can you tell me how far along you are?" 36 weeks, Elena said quickly. She swallowed again. "Please." "Any pain today?" "No, just tight," she whispered. Her hand flicked toward the belt as if she wanted to adjust it, and then thought better of it. "May I take a look at the clasp?" Neela asked, keeping her voice as warm as a hand on a shoulder. "Sometimes these things pinch. We can loosen it a notch." Elena shook her head hard. "Don't cut it." "No one's cutting anything," Aiden said. "We can ease it and get you comfortable." He could feel the hallway ticking down to the ferry departure. He could feel the crowd outside wanting a story and a villain. He could feel Argo, a live compass, pointing at the one thing that mattered. He tipped his chin to the door. "May's on call, right? Let's have the medic step in for a quick look." He told Nyla, then pressed his radio. "May, secondary room, please." From outside, wheels clattered over the tile again. Argo's eyes jumped to the blur of motion through the frosted glass. The dog took one step toward the door, then back to Elena, then the door again, as if mapping a line between 2 points no one else could see. Neela crouched to Elena's side, not touching. Careful. Up close, the salt at the clasp was unmistakable. Not the neat dust of a hot day, but the tide mark you get after ocean air dries on metal. "Did you come by the water this morning?" she asked. Elena blinked. "What?" "Your clasp has salt on it." Neela kept her tone simple, factual. "Sometimes the sea air sticks like that." Elena looked at the floor. "I took a shortcut," she said. "It's nothing." May Tran slipped in, competent and calm, her kit clipped at the hip. She read the room in a heartbeat, the dog's alert, the screen's too perfect line, the tight belt, the fear in the woman's face. "Ma'am, I'm going to feel the edge of your support band," she said. "You tell me if anything hurts." Elena flinched away. "Please don't," she said. And the plea carried a different weight now, not embarrassment, but dread. She pressed her palm over the clasp as if her skin alone could keep a secret in place. "I just need to make the ferry. If I miss it, I'll be late. If I'm late..." She stopped. The room heard the part she didn't say. Aiden stepped in closer, lowering his voice, until it belonged only to the four of them and the dog. "Late for who, Miss Voss?" Outside the door, the rolling cart rattled past again, heading toward the piers. Argo's head snapped, the movement crisp as a hinge. He looked to Aiden, then to the door, then back to Elena's belt, and let out one single controlled bark that sounded less like noise than a verdict. In the hall, someone knocked against the frosted glass and then moved away. The ferry horn answered itself with a final call. Time, in the way only public transportation can, reminded everyone that it waits for no person's trouble. Elena's shoulders sagged. When she looked up, the wet at her lashes was no longer a trick of light. "I can't be late," she said. "You don't understand. They'll do it if I'm late." "Who will do what?" Aiden asked. Her voice came out so thin it nearly vanished. "They'll turn it on." The hum of the fluorescent lights seemed suddenly louder. Nyla glanced at the screen again, at the lovely, steady curve that did not belong to any baby on Earth. May's hand hovered an inch from the belt, not touching, listening with her eyes the way medical people learn to do. Aiden did what he always did when the ground shifted under his feet. He took stock. Dog alert, artificial rhythm, salt on the clasp. A frightened woman who kept one hand on a belt like a door latch she couldn't let anyone open. And out there, that cart, rolling toward the water because that's where carts roll in places built for boats. He nodded once, to no one and everyone. "Okay," he said softly. "We're going to do this right. Miss Voss, we'll keep you safe. May, stay with her. Nyla, clear the corridor." Argo was already moving before the words finished, turning to face the door, muscles coiled, eyes bright. Aiden reached for the handle and paused only long enough to give the dog a look they both understood. "Work," he said. Argo surged forward into the hallway light. The secondary room swallowed the noise of the hub, the way a church narthex swallows the street. Fluorescence hummed. Vents breathed a soft, steady draft that smelled like sanitizer and old paper. Aiden eased the door shut with his shoulder and took the corner nearest it. A simple move that promised two things at once. No surprises from the hall, and no way out without talking first. Argo paced once around the small space, nose working, then sat facing Elena as if he had posted himself on guard. Elena stayed upright, one hand over the support belt, the other clenched around the strap of her tote. Up close, the polish came off the picture. The knit of her dress had pills where a seatbelt had rubbed. The belt at her back sat a shade too high, the way a prop sits on a shelf someone hasn't used before. She breathed through her mouth, shallow and quick, eyes clocking the closed door, the vent, the monitor in Nyla's hand. The dog. Nyla moved with that calm some young people have when they've already lived through other people's worst days. She rolled a stool forward with her knee and offered it without insistence. "Have a seat if you like," she said. "You're safe here." She lifted the slim monitor again, careful to angle the screen away from Elena at first so the numbers wouldn't turn into a verdict. May Tran snapped a glove from her kit, but didn't put it on yet. "Name and age for my chart?" she asked, voice pitched low, warm as a kitchen late at night. "Elena Voss," the woman said. 30. "Any complications this pregnancy?" Elena shook her head. "No, I just need to catch the ferry." "We'll help you make that if we can," Aiden said. The words were honest, not a trick. He glanced to Nyla. "Let's get a baseline." Nyla slid the sensor across the knit with practiced hands. The screen bloomed with a rhythm pretty enough to frame. It looked like a promise. It looked like a lie. No bobbles with breath or speech, no tiny accelerations when Elena flinched at the cool gel, no hesitation at all. Aiden saw Nyla take that in and school her face a half-second faster than any camera could catch. Argo rose without a sound, took 2 small steps, and stood so that his shoulder brushed Elena's shin. No teeth, no bark. Just presence. The kind of presence that keeps a ledge walker from looking down too long. "Ms. Voss," Nyla said gently, "I'm going to check your belt. Sometimes if it's too tight or the clasp bites, you get that ache that feels like it's in your spine." She tilted the sensor away and reached for a pack of wipes to make the action ordinary. "May I?" "Please don't cut it," Elena said. Not loud, but full of panic. Her fingers pressed the clasp hard enough to blanch the knuckles. "I can't be late." Aiden tracked the words more than the volume. Can't be late, not don't want to be late. Outside, through the frosted glass, the shadow of a rolling cart slid past, wheels rattling a tune the dog seemed to know by heart. Argo's ears tipped forward, then settled again. May, still ungloved, leaned a little to the side to catch a better glimpse of the clasp. "You at the water this morning?" she asked, like a neighbor making conversation. Elena blinked. "What?" Nyla touched the seam with a knuckle. "We're seeing some salt crust," she said. "Not dust, the tide kind. Happens when sea air dries on metal." "I took a shortcut," Elena said after a moment. "Along the seawall. It's faster." A ferry horn answered from the dock, closer now, as if to agree. The sound reached in here like a clock winding down. Argo did not flinch. He kept his eyes on Elena's middle and that clasp in particular, head canted just a degree, the way he did when a faint note hid under a louder song. May drew her glove on then, slow so it wouldn't read his threat. "I'd like to loosen 1 notch," she said. "No cutting, just a little room. If something is pinching, it eases right away. Then we can walk you to the gate." Elena's breath came quicker. "If you open it, I'll miss the ferry," she said. The words were wrong by logic, right by fear. She closed her eyes for 1 beat, and when she opened them, the years on her face added up to more than 30. I don't get to be late, not today." "Late for who?" Aiden asked softly. She stared at a point on the floor between her shoes, fighting with an answer that didn't want to be born. "It's complicated," she said. "Please." Nyla traded the monitor for a small gel pack from May's kit. "Let's do this," she said. "I'm going to set a cool pack over the belt to ease the pressure while we talk. No opening, no cutting. Just comfort." She placed it with the gentleness you use when someone's hand has been on a hot pan. Elena startled at the first touch, then stilled. The screen's pretty line stayed pretty. A knock sounded on the door. Not impatient, just present. The shadow outside moved on. The hub breathed. The room breathed back. Aiden let a few seconds pass because sometimes seconds are the tool you need. He watched what changed and what didn't. Elena's pupils stayed wide. Her shoulders never settled. The hand at the clasp didn't fatigue. And Argo, whose work was to sort the living world into safe and not safe, kept that poised, quiet stance that meant nothing here was normal. "Ms. Voss," Aiden said, "we're going to walk this carefully. I'm not here to make your morning harder. I'm here to make sure you get another morning." Elena made a small sound at that, a sound like a hinge that needs oil. "You don't understand," she said, and the words carried a grief that felt older than the room. "They said if I missed the time, they'd—" She cut herself off with a shake of the head. Not bravado, strategy. She was protecting something or someone, and the protecting hurt. Nyla followed the thread she had. Time. "You said 9 o'clock, she said. "Why that ferry? There's another at 9:20. "They won't wait?" Elena said. Her palm pressed harder, almost as if she was trying to keep a door from blowing open. If I don't show, they'll do it remote. She swallowed. And I won't be the only one hurt. May's eyes flicked. Quick arithmetic. Remote. Not the word you use about labor. Do you feel dizzy? Short of breath? She asked, and she had the ox sensor ready in her other hand before Elena could answer. A little, Elena admitted. It gets warm. Nyla lifted the gel pack and set a fresh one. The clasp under her gloves felt faintly warm too, not from skin, but from something that kept its own stubborn weather. She looked at Aiden, and he didn't need a speech to know what she meant. Outside, the cart rattled again, this time toward the piers for sure. Argo's head turned, body taut as a wire, then returned to Elena with a decision that looked like math. 2 sources, 1 priority. Aiden raised his radio just enough to shield his mouth. Rana, I need 5 minutes on the 9 o'clock, he said. Hold at gate until I clear. Negative, Chief Rana answered, practical to the bone. We're stacked and tight. You've got 3. Copy, Aiden said, and didn't argue because arguing loses minutes too. He slid the radio away and lowered his voice. Ms. Voss, listen to me. I believe someone put you in a bad position. We're not going to let them finish the job. But I need you to let us help. If we have to move you, we will. If we can fix it here, we will. Either way, you walk out of this room. Elena's mouth trembled. You can't fix it, she said. And the way she said it told him she wanted to be wrong. Let us try, May said. A notch, no cutting, just a little air. Elena stared at the Shai clasp a long, aching second. Then she nodded so small it might have been a shiver. 1 notch, she whispered. Please be careful. Nayla met May's eyes. May nodded back. Gloves on, tools away. This would be hands and sense and patience. Neela slid her fingers under the knit, found the tab by feel, and eased. The belt gave a reluctant sigh. Elena flinched, then breathed out. A real breath this time. Not the shallow kind you do when you're holding yourself together with thread. Argo stayed still, but the fur between his shoulders raised 1 shade, a quiet alarm clock. The monitor's elegant line did not change. Too steady, too perfect. Nyla let the belt rest 1 notch looser and did not, for the moment, do more. Ms. Voss, Aiden said, how long have you been on their clock? Elena blinked hard, 1 tear escaping like a secret. Since dawn, she said. I met a man by the seawall. He watched me put this on. He said if I wasn't at the pier by 9, I wouldn't need to worry about anything anymore. She touched her belly with a gentleness that made the room ache. He said I'd understand why when it was too late. The ferry horn gave its last call. In the glass, the shadow of the cart slid by 1 final time. Argo turned his head, tracked it, then looked straight at Aiden and barked once, sharp and disciplined. Aiden didn't waste the sound. Nyla, with me in 10, he said. May, you stay on Ms. Voss. Keep her cool and breathing easy. He softened for Elena again. We'll handle the part outside the room. You're not alone now. Elena's eyes closed. When she opened them, the panic had not left, but it had company. Trust, thin as a wire. Strong enough to hold weight if the hands were careful. Aiden palmed the latch. Argo rose, ready. The hallway on the other side breathed the hub back into their bodies. The smell of wet rope and coffee. The distant call of gulls. The scuff and rattle of a life that had somewhere to be. Aiden gave Argo a small nod. Easy, he said. We follow the wheels. The dog slipped through the gap like a thought that had finally found its words. When the door closed behind Aiden and Nyla, The room felt smaller, like a breath held too long. May set another cool pack against the belt and watched the little things that tell the truth when words won't. Color in the lips, the tiny flutter at the throat, how a hand grips and won't let go. Elena's hand never left the clasp. Argo's paw steps faded down the corridor. Then the steady thrum of the hub folded back in. "It's getting warmer," Elena said near a whisper, like a hand on a stove, but from the inside. "We'll keep it down," May answered, calm as a kitchen timer. She moved the thermometer across the fabric. The readout bumped higher than body heat, then held as if something beneath it made its own weather. "How long have you felt the heat?" "Since the man at the seawall gave me the belt," Elena said, eyes fixed on the floor. "He said, keep moving. Don't run. Don't stop for anyone." May glanced at the elegant line scrolling across the monitor. The rhythm did not shift with fear or breath. Pretty as a lullaby. Faithless as a clock. A knuckle rapped the door. It swung inward without waiting for an answer. A man in scrubs stepped in. A tote slung over his shoulder, a badge lanyard flipped backward so the front didn't show. He stood with the easy confidence of someone used to being let through. "Dr. Cade," he announced, not loudly, just as if that solved something. "Chief said you needed a hand." May looked at the lanyard and then his hands. Clean nails. No callus from a stethoscope's yoke. Eyes too bright. The tote, though, was right. A field kit with compartments for everything. And the everything inside arranged like someone who'd done this 1,000 times or never at all. "We're good," she said. "We've got it." Cade's smile was professional and thin. "Not what I heard. She looks flushed." He set the tote down and opened it in one practiced motion. "If we're about to have an emergency, we should move her. Elevated heart rate, possible preeclampsia. Better safe." May did not move aside. "She says the heat is under the belt." "Then we definitely shouldn't touch it here," Cade said, and he was already pulling out a pair of scissors with the blunt tips designed not to catch on skin. "We'll take her out to cool air, then evaluate." Elena flinched as if the room had tilted. "Don't cut it," she said, that panic back in her voice, sharp enough to leave a mark. "See?" Cade said to May, smiling again, reasonable as a brochure. "We're upsetting her. Let's step out and let her rest until transport arrives." May kept her eyes on his kit. Under the scissors lay a squat metal tube with a pressure gauge and a small, quick-connect hose. Not standard for a clinic bag. The label, half peeled, had 3 letters left that anyone who worked around engines would recognize. A bleed valve, for pressure. "What's that for?" she asked. Cade slid his hand over the tube like a magician palming a coin. "Oxygen. Basic support." His gaze flicked to the clasp and back so fast, a less careful person might have missed it. "Look, I get it. Nobody wants to make the wrong call. But if that belt is causing her distress, we remove it and we walk her to the gate." He looked at Elena. "You still have time." Elena shook her head, tiny and desperate. "Not if you open it," she said. May took one step so that her shoulder stood between Cade and Elena. "No cutting," she said evenly. "Not yet." Cade exhaled through his nose like a man being patient with an amateur. "You realize you're assuming the liability here." May said. "And you realize your badge is turned around." For a second, the room was only fan noise and the tiny scratch of the monitor's paper. Then the door opened again, and Nyla slipped in sideways, eyes taking in Cade, the tube, the scissors, the belt, and Elena's white-knuckled hand in one sweep. "Sergeant's on the pier," she said to May, without taking her eyes off Cade. He wants to know if he needs to stop a man with a bag and a reason. Cade smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. We're all on the same team. Great, Nyla said. Show me your badge, teammate. Cade flipped the lanyard. The badge had a lamination glare to it that didn't help. Nyla didn't blink. I'll call to verify, she said, already lifting her radio. Time, Cade said, as if reminding them all of the one God a terminal respects. He reached again for the scissors. Let's not make a show out of this. Step back, May said. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. She turned to Elena, gentler than the room deserved. I need you to tell me if the heat pulses or stay steady. Steady, Elena said, like a hand, like somebody said it and walked away. Nyla moved to the counter, set Cade's tube upright, and read the gauge. The needle quivered above ambient. The quick connect hose ended in a fitting that did not match oxygen. It matched the kind of valve you find on tanks you don't keep around a patient. What were you going to connect this to? She asked. Portable regulator, Cade said smoothly. You can't see it because we haven't unpacked it yet. Nyla said, same tone as May. She didn't put the tube down. May, can we cool the surface again while I get Aiden back here? May nodded. Ms. Voss, we're going to ease the belt one more notch and slide a cold barrier beneath. No cutting. If anything burns, you tell me and I'll stop. She slipped her fingers under the fabric, worked the tab with the finesse of someone untying a knot in a child's shoelace. The belt sighed another fraction. Warmth breathed out like a held secret. Elena gasped, not from pain, but from relief so sudden it made her lightheaded. It's easier. Good, May said. Stay with me. She traded gel packs, watching the thermometer. The number edged down and held. The elegant line on the monitor kept its perfect, useless dance. Cade shifted his weight. If you're loosening, you should commit and remove, he said. Incomplete measures are unsafe. I'll escort her to the gate. We can transfer custody there. He smiled again, patient and thin. I know you're all doing your best. Nyla's radio crackled. Go, Aiden's voice said in her ear. Secondary room, she answered. We have a man calling himself Dr. Cade with a kit that doesn't read like a clinic. We also have a heat source under the belt that behaves independent of the patient. She paused. And your dog was right about the cart. On my way, Aiden said. In the hall, Argo's nails clicked once on tile like punctuation. Cade's smile didn't change, but something underneath it did. He reached, not for the scissors now, but for the tube, fast and fluid. Nyla was faster. She lifted the tube out of reach and stepped back, planting it on the far counter beside the sink. No, she said, plain as a stop sign. Hands where I can see them. He held his palms out, the picture of injured innocence. You're overreacting. The door opened on that, and Aiden filled the frame, Argo at his knee, both of them carrying the cold from the pier on their coats. Argo went still the instant he saw Cade, as if a hinge inside him had told him to lock. Aiden didn't bother with pleasantries. Badge, he said. Cade turned the lanyard. Aiden looked once and then at Nyla. Did you verify? In progress, she said. The number pings a clinic across town. He's not on their roster. Aiden stepped between Cade and Elena, a small move that changed the gravity of the room. Ms. Voss, he said softer again, I need you to tell me what they gave you to say. Elena's lips parted. She looked at Cade, then at the floor, then at May's hand still steady at the belt. They said if anyone tried to open it before I got to the pier, They'd turn it on and let it run hot. They said I'd pass out, and it would look like I collapsed. And by the time anyone figured it out, it would be too late for me and a lot of other people. She swallowed. They said a nurse would meet me and take care of it, so nobody would get hurt. A man with a bag. Argo's breath hitched, the smallest sound. Aiden didn't look away from Cade. What's in the belt? Elena's hand trembled over the clasp. They called it a cradle, she said, as if naming it gave it less power. Said it would make a heartbeat so no one would question. They showed me a picture of a screen that looked just like that. Her eyes flicked to the monitor's perfect wave. They told me not to worry about heat if I kept walking. May nodded once to herself and made the decision that would either save the room or set it on fire. Sergeant, she said, we can't move her like this. We need to see it. Carefully. Aiden weighed the clock he could hear and the one he could feel. He planted a foot, turning his shoulder just enough that if Cade rushed, he'd meet an unkind welcome. Do it, he said to May. Nyla, you keep our guest exactly where he's standing. May breathed in, the kind of breath you take before you thread a needle in shaking light. She slid 2 fingers under the belt again and worked the clasp, slow, 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 each click a tiny surrender. The fabric loosened. The heat sighed again. Under the knit, a shape shifted not like a child, but like a bag settling. Easy, Aiden said, though no one had moved. May lifted the knit the smallest amount. Beneath it lay a smooth, white shell shaped to suggest a belly, only a little too perfect, the way mannequins are always a little too perfect. Embedded near the top, a small plastic window showed a chamber the size of a pear. Inside it, a thin disc pulsed, making the pretty beat for the pretty screen. Tubes ran away from that chamber into a second, opaque pouch pressed flat and warm, its surface ridged like a chemical hand, warmer not yet spent. May didn't touch the pouch. She touched the edge of the shell and felt the faint hum of a device designed to convince. Cradle, she said softly, confirming Elena's word. Then, firmer, and a reservoir. Cade chose that instant to move. He went for the counter, not the patient, his hand darting toward a drawer as if the right tool might erase the wrong facts. Argo hit him from the side, not teeth, just a heavy shoulder and a growl that started low and climbed. Cade froze with his fingers on the handle. Aiden's hand closed on Cade's wrist, efficient as a door bolt, and pushed it to the counter where it could do no mischief. Don't, Aiden said. Cade let the smile go. What replaced it was flatter, closer to the truth. You don't know what you're doing, he said. That pack will vent if you keep warming it and cooling it. Pressure changes, officer. You'll poison your own room. May kept her hand steady. Then don't talk, she said. And don't touch anything. Neela had already called for a hazmat tray and a cold shield, the simple gear they kept for spills too small to call a team for, too dangerous to ignore. She snapped a thin barrier open and slid it under the shell where May pointed. The thermometer dipped another degree. The elegant waveform kept singing its lie. Elena's eyes filled and spilled. I didn't want to do this, she said, not to excuse herself, but to mark the truth for whatever would come next. They have my brother. They said this was the only way. We hear you, Aiden said. We'll get him. He looked to Nyla. Tell Rana we're holding the 859 if she can keep the gangway shut. Then have port security pull the cart crew from Pier 7 aside, starting with the guy who swaps bins. Our friend here brought a bleed-off tube for a reason. They plan to take the pack, not deliver a baby. Nyla relayed, crisp and clear. Outside, a different kind of hallway noise began. The controlled shuffle of people being turned by professionals who weren't there to argue. Argo stayed on Cade. Breath low and steady, the line of his body spelling out all the warnings a man needs. May lifted the edge of the shell another inch and found the harness points. Magnetic locks meant to be opened by a mate that only the right hands carried. Not scissors, not a knife. A key. No wonder they'd told Elena to keep moving until the meeting. "We're not the ones who designed this," she murmured. "But we're the ones who showed up." "Can you disarm it?" Aiden asked. "I can make it less angry," May said. She slid a cold pack along the opaque pouch without pressing. The thermometer dipped again. The hum softened by a hair. She looked at Elena. "You did the hard part. You walked in here." Elena let out a sound that belonged in a confessional. "I thought maybe if someone asked the right question, I could answer it." "You did," May said. "We heard you." Aiden tightened his grip on Cade's wrist, just enough to make a point without making a bruise. "Where's the key?" he asked. Cade stared at the middle distance, where some men keep their pride. Then he flicked his eyes toward the tote he'd dropped at the start. The gesture was small. Argo saw it. Nyla saw it. Aiden didn't look away from Cade as he said, "Nyla." She went through the tote with the speed of someone who has had to find a vein in a blackout. At the bottom, wrapped in a sterile wipe, lay a metal disc with teeth that matched the harness points like a charm matches a bracelet. She held it up. "Got it." Cade made one last attempt at control. "If you open the reservoir without the sister valve, you'll aerosolize the—" "We're not opening the reservoir," May said, already fitting the key to the lock. "We're removing the cradle and isolating the pack so it stops cooking her from the outside." The lock yielded with a small, guilty click. The hum eased. The elegant heartbeat on the monitor ticked on, exposed now for what it was. The sound of a tiny motor pretending to be a life. May lifted the shell, slow as lifting a sleeping child, and slid the cold barrier deeper between Elena and the warm pouch. The heat on May's gloved palm dulled by degrees. The thermometer followed it down. The air in the room felt less tight in the lungs. Elena sagged and then caught herself. "Easy," May said. "Breathe with me." They took 3 long breaths together, and when they were done, Elena's hands had stopped shaking. Aiden snapped cuffs on Cade, quick and neat, then eased him to the wall. "You're done," he said. And for once, Cade didn't argue. Outside, the ferry horn blew a long, held note that sounded less like hurry and more like warning. Aiden listened to it, to the vents, to the dog, to his own pulse. He looked at Elena, at the cradle on the counter, at the pouch still warm as a stone in afternoon sun. He thought of the cart rolling toward the pier and the quiet men who move bins for a living, while other men hide secrets in the wheels. "May," he said, "keep her cool and keep that thing from getting any ideas. Nyla, with me. Argo, heel." He met Elena's eyes. "You're not late anymore. We've got the clock." Elena blinked through fresh tears that weren't fear now, so much as a kind of release that leaves a person empty and grateful. "Please," she said, voice husky. "My brother. His name is Luca." Aiden nodded once. "We're going to find him." He opened the door. The hallway light struck clean and bright across the threshold. Argo rose like a tide, steady and sure, and followed Aiden out toward the pier, where a cart's rattle had become the sound of men trying to make a disaster look like a delivery. The hallway outside the quiet room ran straight as a plumb line toward the piers. You could smell the harbor stronger here, a rope and brine smell that got into your clothes and stayed. Aiden moved at a steady clip, not running, not strolling, a speed that told people he had somewhere to be, and they didn't want to be in his way. Argo matched him half a step ahead, nose low, head working like a compass needle finding north. Neela came on his left with her radio tight to her shoulder and her eyes on everything. The rolling cart's rattle carried above the crowd noise, small but sure. The way a watch ticks in a quiet room if you think to listen. Argo's ears tipped and his shoulder brushed Aiden's knee. "Find," Aiden said. And the dog took the word like permission he'd been waiting for. They cleared the security line and came out under the high glass that arched over the ferry concourse. Chief Rana stood near the gangway, with a clipboard she used like a shield against a dozen voices. She gave Aiden a look that mixed apology with iron. "We're stacked," she said. "If I hold this any longer, the 920 dies. And then we're rebuilding the day with a hammer." "Give me 2 minutes," Aiden said. "If I'm wrong, I'll buy the coffee and write the apology myself." He didn't wait for her answer. He followed Argo. The older custodian, Ortiz, had his cap pulled low against the glare. His cart, one of those steel-framed workhorses you can fix with a crescent wrench and patience, creaked along at an honest pace. He had rags and bottles and a plastic caddy that held a dozen small needs. He also had, Nyla saw, a thin smear of the same UV paint on the handle that had been on Elena's belt. In normal light, it hid like a shy child. Under Nyla's penlight, it glowed the faint color of a bruise. "Mr. Ortiz?" Neela said, easing up alongside. "Mind if we take a quick look at your cart?" He stopped the way a good man stops, hands off, eyes on. "What did I miss?" he asked, not defensive, just wanting to help. "Maybe nothing," Aiden said. "Maybe the thing everybody else missed because you're the one who always shows up." He nodded at Argo. The dog circled once and then settled. Front paws braced against the cart's lower brace, nose hard at the seam where the frame met the floor plate. "What you got?" Aiden asked. Argo breathed in, breathed out, then drove his muzzle at the seam again. He didn't bark. He didn't need to. Aiden crouched and ran his fingers along the metal. To the naked eye, the line was just a line. To a hand that has learned to read, it had been opened in the last day and closed by someone in a hurry. "UV," Neela said. She swept the penlight along the frame. A faint arrow bloomed, pointing to a rectangle no bigger than a paperback book, flush to the metal. She touched the spot with a gloved fingertip and felt the tug you feel when a magnet reminds you who's in charge. Ortiz made a soft noise in his throat. "That's not mine," he said. "I would have heard them, I think." "You were busy working," Aiden said. "That's why they chose you." He kept his palm flat and slid it along the plate until the magnet gave up with a gritty sigh. The object under it rode free in his hand, a metal plate with a shallow pocket and a sensor the size of a pea glued dead center. Aiden turned it and read the sticker. No brand, no serial, just a stamped number and a tiny LED asleep for now. Nyla lifted her chin toward the gangway. "Pier 7, she said. "Our paint trail lines up." Chief Rana stepped in, close enough to hear, but far enough to let him be the boss of his own mess. "That going to blow up my schedule?" she asked. And it was the right kind of question, not because the schedule mattered more than people, but because order keeps panic from growing teeth. "It's a tracker," Nyla said. "Maybe more. Ms. Voss's belt likely pings it. They meet cart to belt, pop the lock with a key, pull the pack, and walk away clean. Nobody questions a custodian by a ferry, not when the clock is yelling." Ortiz took his cap off and held it against his chest. "Someone used my route," he said, near to shame. Aiden shook his head. "They used everyone's route. You just happened to be good at yours." He looked at Rana. "Hold the gangway. We search the crew that swaps shore bins to on board. And we need eyes on anyone with a medical tote and a story." Rana spoke into her mic, and the concourse obeyed in that quiet way only a well-run place knows how to obey. The gate agents smiled wider. The rope stanchions breathed in and made a bigger loop. A deckhand ambled, casual as a cousin, to the top of the gangway and set his body in the exact square where bodies go when they mean nobody is crossing for a minute. Argo's head came up like a weather vane shifting. He looked past Aiden, past the cart, down the concourse to a cluster of people at the far water door. A man in gray scrubs stood there, tote on his shoulder, talking to a uniform with an easy, practiced charm. Not Cade. Cade was cuffed in the quiet room. This one had a different face and a matching tote. "On me," Aiden said. They moved as a line, Aiden in front, Nyla at his shoulder, Argo threading the crowd so neatly he could have been a shadow. Ortiz stayed with his cart, spine straightening as if his dignity wanted to be seen. The man in scrubs saw them coming and did not run. The good ones don't. He smiled like people who always get waved through. "I'm late to assist," he said before anyone asked. "Got the call? Patient's anxious. I'm just trying to help." "Badge," Nyla said. The word rode easy out of her mouth now, produced one. It would have looked fine to anyone who hadn't just stared hard at a different fake. Nyla tilted it against the glare. The lamination bubbled at the corner like a bad decal. "Step to the side, please," she said. He tried to angle past instead, casual. Argo slid into his path and showed him a polite mouthful of consequences. The man stopped being charming. He raised both hands, let the tote swing down, and offered an offended laugh. "Is this necessary?" Aiden took the tote. It had weight and a rattle. He opened it on a bench. Inside lay a second metal key with teeth that matched the harness points in the belt and a pair of gloves still stuck together from the factory. No stethoscope, no gauze, no tape. In the side pocket, wrapped in a rag, a small remote with 2 buttons and a cracked screen. "Who are you meeting?" Aiden asked. The man smiled again, thinner now. "My supervisor." "Name," Nyla said. "Goes by Kate sometimes," he said. And that was either a slip or a dare. "You have him already, don't you? Good for you." He likes to run his mouth. He looked toward the water like a man checking the time by tide. "You're already late." Aiden handed the tote to Nyla and turned to Rana. "We need the gangway sealed and the lower deck searched. Anyone with a tote or a cart meets a partner in uniform before they move an inch. Anyone with a badge that looks like it came out of a vending machine sits on a bench and thinks about better life choices." Rana didn't blink. She relayed, and the deckhands moved in their unhurried, unstoppable way, sweeping the lower deck like men who had swept for spills and fights and worse. Argo tugged at his lead, not hard, just insistent. He wanted the pier. He wanted the place where the sound changed underfoot from tile to steel. "Go," Aiden told him. And they went. Nyla falling in with a small UV flashlight now, painting faint arrows where the eye couldn't see. On the gangway rail, right where a hand would slide if a man were steadying a cart, the paint flared faintly. On the bollard at the bottom of the ramp, another mark. On the ferry's loading door, a third, tiny as a sigh. Ortiz caught them at the foot of the gangway, hat back on, cart set to the side out of the traffic's way. "If you want the man who swaps the bins," he said, "ask for Ray. He's good at his job, too good. He moves fast and doesn't talk. Men who don't talk get told things without words. "Where is he now?" Aiden asked. "Below," Ortiz said. "Left side. He'll be setting the empties." Aiden nodded. "Thank you." He pointed to a bench. "Sit tight for me, sir. We'll need your statement. Then I'll walk you to coffee myself." Ortiz flushed at the respect and did as told. Neela shot the UV beam across the ramp one more time and found, right at the edge where steel met wood, a symbol so faint it might have been a scratch from a careless boot. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a number. It was a little hook and bar, a worker's shorthand. She showed Aiden. "They mark their roads," she said, "so they can walk them with their eyes shut." Aiden looked to the ferry, to the dark mouth of the lower deck, to the pale square where daylight ended and shadow began. "Then we'll turn on every light we have," he said. Argo bristled, not at fear, but at purpose. He took one testing step onto the deck, nails ticking on metal, then another. Somewhere below, a bin thumped, a man coughed, and a gull screamed at a world that never quite learned. Aiden felt the clock settle on his shoulders and fit like an old coat. He had his dog. He had his people. He had the line between harm and home. He touched the rail with his fingertips, like a ball player tapping the sign. "Pier 7 holds," he told Rana over his shoulder. "Nobody moves that ferry until we say so." "Copy," she said. "You've got your 2 minutes." "That's all we needed," Aiden said. He gave Argo the word he saved for moments when a door needed opening and there wasn't time to find a key. The dog dropped low and slid into the shadows, silent as a rumor. Aiden and Nyla followed, the smell of salt and oil rising to meet them, the paint's faint glow pointing a path that had been walked already this morning by men who thought no one would ever see. Metal swallowed sound the way snow swallows footprints. The lower deck ran long and dim, lit by stripes of daylight sliding in from the pier. Bins thumped in their cradles. Diesel breathed slow. Aiden walked with his palm grazing the bulkhead, feeling vibration like a low drum. Argo stayed ahead, nose stitching the air, tail flat for focus. Nyla followed the thin freckles of UV paint that showed up wherever a gloved hand had left a quiet promise. They reached the midship bay and saw him, a wiry man in a reflective vest moving empties like a magician does scarves. Ortiz had named him Ray. He worked with his chin down and his eyes up. Quick wrists, no wasted steps. Beside him, a shore cart sat with its hatch tipped, and on the hatch a square pad the size of a lunch plate with a magnet at each corner. It was wired to nothing, which told Aiden it was wired to everything that mattered. Argo eased left, testing the air. Ray flicked a glance and kept stacking. The smart ones never bolt early. Aiden set his voice to plain. "Ray," he said. "A word." Ray did not look up. "Clock says I'm busy," he answered. His accent rode the words easy, old Doc mixed with radio static. Nyla angled to the pad and lifted the UV light. The same worker's hook and bar mark glowed faint on the hatch lip. "Busy doing what?" she asked. "Catching magnets?" Ray smiled without showing teeth. "That a crime now?" Argo decided the talking portion was over. He slid past the cart and planted himself between Ray and the hatch, head angled toward the pad. A rumble built in his chest, the safe room hum turned sharper. Aiden felt it in his ribs. Nyla watched Ray's hands, and because she watched, she saw the slip. A thumb on a small remote tucked inside the vest, the kind a man keeps when he wants something to happen just a hair sooner than fate intended. "Hands," Aiden said. Ray lifted them, lazy as a yawn. The remote stayed caged in fabric. Aiden nodded once. Argo stepped an inch, low and deliberate, and Ray read the message. He let the remote fall into his palm and set it on the bin with 2 fingers, like it was a snake he'd rather not know. The screen was spidered with a crack. 2 buttons, no labels. The antenna's stub hummed on a frequency you felt more than heard. "Who's meeting you?" Nyla asked. "Whoever's late," Ray said. "Try another one," Aiden said. Ray watched the dog. "Guy with a tote," he tried. "Guy with a key." He shrugged. "They don't bring names to work." Aiden palmed the remote. It had weighed out of proportion to its size. He did not press anything. He held it like you hold a match you can't afford to drop. The ferry horn bellowed up above, long and impatient. He keyed his radio. "Rana, lower deck is a crime scene. We're not sailing." "Copy," she said. "Passengers will think bad thoughts. They can send them to me." Aiden looked at Nyla. "Call May," he said. "Tell me what the pack is doing." Nyla was already there. "May, talk to me," she said into her mic. May's voice came thin over the speaker, edged with HVAC hum and the rip of adhesive. "Shell is off. Pack is warm but stable with cold barrier. Heartbeat motor still ticking. Miss Voss is upright. She keeps asking about her brother." "Tell her we're with Ray," Aiden said. "Ask if she has any code words they used, any phrases that matter." There was a pause, then Elena's voice, breathy and brave. "He said if I was stopped, I should ask for the sister valve. He said the man on the pier would know where it sits. He said to tell him I brought the cradle hot, so they should bleed and go. He keeps calling my brother by only one name. Luca." Nyla met Aiden's eyes. Sister valve like the tube in Cade's tote. Bleed and go like the glove-wrapped remote Ray had just given up with a shrug. Aiden looked at Ray. "You hear that?" he asked. Ray looked at the floor. "I hear a woman who got used." "And you used your hands to make it happen," Aiden said, not cruel, just accurate. "Where's the valve?" Ray nodded at a tool chest that lived bolted to the bulkhead. "Bottom drawer," he said. "They keep it where the oil rags live so nobody asks too many questions." Nyla opened the drawer. The smell of solvent drifted up, sharp as memory. Inside lay a short barrel with a gauge and quick connect, twins with the tube Cade had tried to pass as oxygen. She held it up. "Sister valve," she said. Ray's shrug said yes and said, "What do I get for telling the truth?" Aiden ignored the barter. He turned to Argo. "Show," he said. Argo put his nose to the pad, then to the hatch lip, then to the patch of deck scarce inches from Ray's boot. He sat, neat as a stamp. That was his code for here. Aiden crouched and saw the hairline seam Ortiz's cart had taught him to see. Magnets and plates, a pocket for a pack shaped like a child never was. The ferry shivered out of habit as another crewman banged a cleat up top. Aiden's knees ticked their old complaint. He put his palm flat, found the lift, and pried. The plate came up with a sticky sound, like a tongue leaving a frozen railing. Inside the cubby, a shallow cradle waited, lined with soft foam and dotted with metal teeth that would mate a harness in a heartbeat. The kind of cavity designed to make 2 strangers look like a nurse and a patient doing what nurses and patients do, transferring responsibility with a gentle click. The remote in his hand vibrated the tiniest bit, or maybe his pulse did. He wanted to throw it into the water. He did not. He held it steady so Nyla could shoot it with her phone and log the time. "You going to tell me who built this?" he asked Ray. Ray looked at the hatch lip. "Syndicate doesn't bring blueprints to the dock," he said. "They bring parts." Nyla kept her questions short. "Who gives you the time?" Ray lifted his shoulder. "Same someone who gives you yours. The boss built clocks long before he built routes." Aiden stood, tucking the remote into an evidence bag. He was thinking in pathways now, all the places the pack could travel if he missed by an inch. He keyed the radio again. "May, what's our number?" "Cool and trending down," she said. "Her skin temp is normal over the belt. The pack's outer surface is behaving with the barrier in place. If the remote bleeds pressure, I'd rather it bled in the unit that expects it, not in my room." Aiden breathed out the breath he didn't know he'd been holding. He put the evidence bag in Nyla's hands and picked up the pad by its corners. "We're not going to complete their pickup," he said. "We're going to show we understand it." Ray squinted. "Which means?" "Which means you're done, and we're going to make them show their next move without getting to make it." He nodded to Nyla. "Have security walk Ray to a bench and keep him there. No heroics. He talks, write it down. He shuts up, offer him water. I'll bring Ortiz when we're ready. Argo, heel." They climbed back toward daylight, the dog's nails ticking on the ramp. The crowd looked different now that the gangway stood empty. Less a herd, more 100 private stories paused mid-sentence. Chief Rana stood in the sun with her chin up like a ship's figurehead. "You done stalling my tide?" she asked. "We're changing the tide," Aiden said. He set the pad on the pier out of reach of any metal, then turned to Ortiz, who had stayed where he'd been told, hat straight, hands folded. "Mr. Ortiz, I need your help." "I'll do what I can," Ortiz said. Aiden pointed at the pad. "This is how they pull the pack. We're going to carry it past 3 cameras and set it where they expect to meet a belt. We're going to let them think their plan still has legs. When they step out to collect, we'll see their face in a lens and their hands in a frame. Then we take them without scaring the crowd." Ortiz took that in with the gravity of a man who has raised children and swept after parades. "Where do I push?" he asked. "Straight line to the bench by the water door," Aiden said. "Nyla will walk with you. If anyone touches your cart who isn't wearing her smile, you let Argo do the talking." "Copy," Nyla said, already moving to flank. "May, status?" May answered calm. "Cradle is off and secure. Pack is isolated. Elena is breathing easier. She says the man used Luca's name last night by the seawall and again at dawn. She says if he doesn't see her at 9, he'll use the code on the remote and tell her what a shame it is that machines make mistakes." Aiden looked at the sun angle on the pier and felt the minute hand kiss the hour. "He's not seeing her," he said. "He's seeing a cart and a pad and a dog that doesn't blink." They moved the small theater into place. Ortiz pushing, Nyla walking, Argo ghosting the outside arc, Aiden watching faces. People watch them back the way people always do when order flexes. Curious until fear starts, then grateful for instructions. The bench by the water door sat in a pocket of glare. A gull stood on the rail like a critic. The pad's magnets clicked against the cart's face with a soft, guilty sound. Nyla adjusted the angle until the camera above the exit could see the whole square. "Here we go," she said. The man who arrived wore a dock jacket and a baseball cap, and the sort of calm that comes from thinking you're the only one in the room who knows the real plan. He touched the brim to Ortiz, friendly as a barber. "Busy day, old-timer," he said, and laid a palm flat on the pad like a man touching a mailbox with his own name on it. Argo flowed into his space without a growl this time, just a shoulder and a weight and a look. The man's eyes flicked right, left, up toward the camera, then down to the dog. He made the wrong choice and reached for the pad anyway. Aiden was there before his fingers closed. He took the wrist and turned it and opened the hand with a squeeze, firm and clean. The man didn't fight like a fool. He sagged like a worker at the end of a shift and let the cuffs tell him tomorrow had moved. "Name," Aiden said. "Doesn't matter. the man said. You've already got the only one she'll give you. Luca. You picked the wrong belt, Aiden said. The man smiled without humor. You picked the wrong war. Maybe, Aiden said, but not today. Haas tipped his head at Nyla. She had the camera timestamps, the pad, the cuffed man, Ray on a bench, a remote in a bag, a sister valve in her hand, and a dog that had earned every minute. The ferry horn blew again, not angry now, just part of the harbor's old song. Aiden looked toward the quiet room, toward the glass, toward a woman who had walked in with heat at her belly and fear in her throat, and still told the truth when someone finally asked the right question. He keyed his radio. May, tell Elena we have a face and a set of hands. Tell her we can trade them for a boy if she's ready to help us call. Copy, May said. She's ready. Then we're ready, Aiden answered. Argo leaned into his leg, a warm, solid press. The dog's breath came easy now, the hum gone, the work not over but aimed. The pier smelled like rope and diesel and something cleaner, the way mornings sometimes do when a thing that could have gone bad did not. Aiden looked at the gangway crew, at Ortiz's steady hands, at Nyla's sharp eyes, at the cuffs on the man who had thought the dock was his to use, and felt the clock finally do what clocks owe decent people. Slow down enough to count. The pier settled like a big animal laying down. The cuffs clicked, the crowd thinned, and the ferry horn dropped to a patient moan that sounded more like weather than warning. Aiden set the cuffed man on a bench facing the water and let the dog sit where the man could feel a warm rib cage against his shin every time he thought about doing something foolish. May, Aiden said into his radio. We're good to trade. Keep Elena calm. I want her voice steady. Steady as a level, May answered. Pack is cooling. Cradle's off and bagged. She's ready when you are. Nyla held up the cracked remote in its bag. Battery's live, she said. If they try to signal, we'll see it blink. The cuffed man tried on a smile that didn't fit anymore. You think a little theater on a pier changes a tide? You stop to pick up. There'll be another ferry, another face, another cart. This is a machine. You're only oiling one squeak. Aiden didn't look at him. Tell me where Luca is, he said. Then I'll decide how complicated my morning needs to be. The man looked past Aiden to the dog. Argo stared back with the polite, steady gaze of a creature that doesn't bluff. The man's shoulders dipped a fraction. Storage locker by the seawall, he murmured. Old cannery, west lot. Unit with a blue lock. They put the kids in the manager's office first. If someone noses around early, they move them to the row by the ice machine where the cameras don't work. Good, Aiden said, like a man accepting a receipt. He nodded at Nyla. Call it. Quiet cars only. No sirens until someone's hand is on the knob. Nyla relayed, voice crisp. Patrol answered back. 2 units rolling from the north, 1 from the south, a plain sedan, already parked with sight lines on the cannery gate. Chief Rana, who had been pretending to check a clipboard while listening to every word, gave a small, satisfied nod and turned to keep passengers informed with the kind of plain talk that stops rumors from taking root. Inside the quiet room, May set the speakerphone on the counter and braced a palm against Elena's back, the way a nurse does in the last minutes of a hard hour. He's by the seawall, May said softly. We're going to get him. They'll need you for one call. Elena wiped at her face and breathed like May had taught her. Slow in, slower out. Tell me what to say, she whispered. Tell him you were held, May said. Tell him the pack is hot and you don't trust the air. Tell him you want the sister valve in a cooler room. Ask where he wants you to stand. She met Elena's eyes. Then keep him talking while we take him out from under his own roof. Aiden patched the call through. The phone rang twice and picked up to the sound of a hallway TV somewhere, playing a ball game with the sound down. "You're late," the voice said. It was the kind that doesn't yell because it doesn't need to. "We don't tolerate late." "They pulled me," Elena said. Her voice wobbled once, then held. "I kept moving like you said, but I'm hot. If you make me stand, I'll pass out and drop it. I need the sister valve. I need inside." A breath, not a sigh, not yet. Just a calculation. "Where are you?" "On the pier," she said. "By the door with the camera. I can walk, but not far. Tell me where to stand." "Manager's office," the voice said, reflex faster than wisdom. "West lot. I'll send a nurse. 10 minutes. Bring the cradle hot." "Say his name," Elena said. "Say Luca." "Luca will be fine if you are good," the voice replied, tired of the extra. "Walk." The line clicked dead. "Units, hold," Nyla said into the mic. "Target says manager's office. Expect movement in 5. Elena's call set the route." Aiden looked toward the water, as if he could see the old cannery through the glare. The cuffed man on the bench found something interesting on his shoe. Argo leaned into Aiden's leg like a pledge. 5 minutes is long when you can see all the ways it could go wrong. The sun burned off the last of the morning pearl until the glass of the concourse threw bright squares on the pier. Gulls argued over nothing. Ortiz, who had been ordered to rest, sat with his hat on his knee and a kind of stubborn peace on his face that made him look younger. "Movement," Neela said into her radio. "Gray hoodie, cap low, stepping out the side door. He's got the same tote we love so much. 2 other shadows inside. Our sedan calls 1 more in the back corridor. Doors are chained from inside. Copy that. Cutter's on the way." Argo's ears ticked. He didn't need the radio to feel the room change 3 neighborhoods away. Aiden pictured the manager's office. Cheap paneling, a wall calendar stuck on last month, a coffee pot that hadn't been emptied since Thursday. He pictured a boy in a metal chair trying not to move because the tape chafed. He pictured a door with a blue file cabinet pushed against it, and a man with a tote believing the day still belonged to him. "Plane cars in," Neela relayed. 1 cuffed in the back hallway, 1 in the office reaching for the window. Window doesn't help him. 3rd tried the roof hatch. Hatch sticks. All 3 detained. Luca in the chair. He's breathing. Elena's knees buckled at that, then held. She covered her mouth and made no sound at all, which is sometimes the bravest way to cry. "Please," she said into the room, though no one had asked. "Please bring him here." "We will," May said, hand steady at her back. "Sit. Breathe. Let your body drop out of emergency." On the pier, Aiden watched the cuffed man shift to find comfort and fail. "You gave us the first address," Aiden said. "Give us the second." The man kept his eyes on the water. "There's a locker near the ice machine with a false panel," he said. "It holds keys and phones. You'll find numbers you don't like." "We never like them," Aiden said. Nyla's phone buzzed. She scanned the screen and nodded. "Luca's with us," she told Aiden, then thumbed to May. "ETA 12 minutes. Plane car escort." May passed the word. Elena pressed both hands to her face and pulled them down slow, like a woman washing. She breathed in the world, as if it could be trusted again, then looked at the pack on the counter and flinched. "Is it done?" "Almost," May said. "I won't open it here. We'll hand it to people who bring bigger toys, but it won't burn you now." "Can you turn off the heartbeat?" Elena asked, eyes on the small window where the tiny disc still pulsed like a clock, pretending to be a child. May reached in with a careful gloved finger and pressed the hidden switch under the housing. The room went noticeably quieter. "There," she said. Now it's only plastic and trouble. Aiden walked the cuffed man to a waiting unit without drama. He patted Ortiz on the shoulder on the way back and meant it. "You did good," he said. "You showed up and kept your eyes open. That's how a lot of people get to go home." Ortiz put his cap back on. "I just pushed where you pointed," he said. "Not everyone does," Aiden answered. The plain sedan slid to the curb with the quiet competence of people who practice. The back door opened. A boy of 19 with a summer haircut and a band of tape glue on his wrists stepped out, blinking at the light like he'd been underwater too long. He saw the dog first, then Aiden, then the building, then his sister through the glass. "Luca," Elena said, already halfway to the door before May caught her elbow to keep her steady. She made it anyway. The boy, had one step on him, then two, and then they were folded into each other the way family fits without measuring. They didn't say much because most of the words had been used up earlier in the day on fear and bargains. They stood and breathed and let the dock noises wash around them like proof that the world was still the world. Argo sat and watched with a gravity that made people lower their voices. Luca leaned to rub the dog's chest without letting go of his sister. "You the hero, huh?" he said softly. Argo accepted the compliment like a paycheck. Aiden scratched a place behind one ear that only partners know. "He did what he always does," Aiden said. He listened. Chief Rana walked over with a practical smile she wore for good news and worse. "We'll reopen the gangway in 10, she said to Aiden. "Passengers will complain like they always do, and then they'll tell this story for a week. My crews pulled 3 more marks in the loading lanes. Your hook and bar is on every bolt that matters. We'll repaint the whole line by sunset." "Thank you," Aiden said, "and sorry for scuffing your tide." "Some tides need scuffing," she said. She looked at Elena and Luca and nodded, a quiet respect that didn't need a speech. Neela came back from the locker by the ice machine with a plastic bag full of burner phones and a key ring that clinked like a wind chime. "They kept their life in their pockets," she said. "Now it's in ours." "Turn it into names," Aiden said. "Give it to people who make maps." She nodded. "Already on its way." May guided Elena to a bench. The cool packs had done their job. The pack on the counter sat like a bad thought, waiting for a shredder. Aiden looked at it and felt the day tilt from emergency to the long work. He didn't mind. The long work is honest. Elena reached a hand down to Argo. He placed his big head under her palm and went still. The old harbor light caught his coat and set a faint sheen along his back, like a promise kept without a trumpet. Aiden stood with his hands on his hips and watched the crowd become a crowd again. The ferry horn blew, this time a normal call, and people moved because that is what people do when the world gives them permission. "Tell him," Elena said, eyes on the dog. Aiden smiled a little. "Argo," he said, and the dog looked up. "Good stop." The tail thumped once, the way a clock ticks when you notice it for the first time. The air felt easier to breathe. The harbor smelled like rope and sun and something clean. They walked Elena and Luca to a quiet car that would take them to a safer address and a longer talk. Ortiz went back to his cart with a new padlock someone from supply had found in a drawer. Neela sent her report up the ladder with pictures and times, and a note in the margin about repainting handrails where the shy paint had glowed. May signed her chart with a neat hand and finally sat down. Aiden stood for a moment, at the edge of the pier where the boards go silver and the water slaps like a friendly dog against a boat. He watched the ferry pull away, a white shoulder moving steady toward the channel. He put a hand on Argo's neck and felt warm. living weight lean into his palm. The day went on. People caught their rides. A watch changed. A bell rang somewhere and nobody noticed. None of that needed a headline. It was enough. Argo had blocked one road so that other roads could stay open. Minutes later, everybody learned why. Your turn. Tell us in one tap. Comment 0 if Argo made the right call the moment he blocked her. Comment 1 if the truth only clicked for you at Pier 7. Comment 2 if you want more behind-the-scenes details in the next story. If this kept your heart in your throat, subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the next case from Harborline. Ordinary moments, one brave dog, and the split-second choices that save lives. New stories are coming, short, clear, and easy to follow. Thanks for watching. Now it's your verdict, 0, 1, or 2.